and welcome to another edition of the Hitting the Hardwood podcast, your home for all the latest Minnesota Lynx and WNBA news, analysis, and coverage. Thank you for tuning into another episode. I'm your host, Mitchell Hansen, and the last time we checked in with you, we had just started the offseason. There wasn't a whole lot going on other than the news specifically surrounding the Minnesota Lynx, and just kind of the rift between some of the players, notably Nafisa Collier and head coach Cheryl Reeve and the WNBA towards the end of the regular season. And really, not a lot has happened since then. We are nearing the October 31st deadline for the CBA negotiations. It's all indications here as we're recording this on Monday, October 27th, is we're not going to reach an agreement by Halloween, which is October 31st. So with that said, that means either they agree to an extension while they continue to work out a deal, or there is a lockout after October 31st, starting November 1st. So we're by the time you're hearing this podcast, we are at least a couple days away from that deadline. We might be approaching that deadline depending on when you're listening to this. And it's time to make some decisions, I guess, of what this thing's going to look like for at least the next few years. More immediately the 2026 year. And then what that will make the rest of the offseason, that being free agency. Obviously, we have the draft, approaching thereafter, and just a lot to figure out yet. So it will be a very, very busy offseason. I don't need to be the one to tell you that, but it'll be a very busy offseason just with news-wise, as well as player movement, player news, and obviously free agency. We're getting teams in the expansion or expanding the WNBA to add more teams. So there's a lot going on. But we're gonna do our best to keep you informed here at Hitting the Hardwood, as well as our other podcasts, Links Happy Hour, The Missing Links, The Missing Wolves, and all of our podcasts here at Hitting the Hardwood. And when it comes specifically to the Minnesota Lynx, they do have players, already playing across the globe. And there will be obviously players playing in Unrivaled again this year. But we'll see plenty of Minnesota Lynx here in the off season. My guess is we'll hear a lot of the Minnesota Lynx here this off season, as well as players throughout the WNBA. But the off season's in full swing, and we're kind of in a standstill before we can kind of look forward to 2026 and kind of project what that might look like. Because there's a lot of uncertainty right now. There's a lot of unknowns. And that's just kind of where we're at. We're in that standstill, as I mentioned, and we're just waiting to hear news on what happens. But before then, I had a fun conversation, which I'll play for you here shortly, with Ayreh Schwartz from Winsidr. Aryeh is he's a fun person to work with. Aryeh, he graciously brought me on at Winsidr. I think this was, it's been a while. It's been at least a handful of years. I don't remember exactly what year I started, 2021, I believe it was. But it's been a lot of fun working with Aryeh, getting to know him better. And he's a lot of fun to chat hoops with. So we talked about the finals, obviously the drama since the finals, and towards the end of, the playoffs. And as well as the kind of what the future looks like and kind of what the tension is between the players, the league, and things that the league needs to work on, as well as just kind of looking forward. So, but it's it like I said, it's a very weird time to be in. It's a very kind of unknown time to be in. But we do our best to kind of break everything down and kind of make sense of all of it. And I hope you enjoy it. So let's jump right into the podcast with Aryeh Schwartz. Aryeh, how you doing?
Well, it's the off season, so a little bit more calm than the regular season. But
Yeah,
as always, lots of WNBA on the mind, and there is no calm time in the world of WNBA basketball.
absolutely. How are things going for the off season for you? Have you been able to kind of unplug and kind of get away from things for a little bit?
As it happens to be, yes, had some family friend celebrations and stuff, so I've been traveling a little bit. Nice
Good.
to unwind and like kind of just completely unplug and reset.
Hmm.
But hit the ground running because as we were just saying, the season comes super quick. The CBA, I don't know when this episode's coming out, but the CBA could be signed, could be extended, there could be a
Hmm.
lockout. Like
Yep.
we are living in a magical world of the unknown right now, and so it's just kind of trying to ride the wave and enjoy the process, as the kids say.
Yeah, who would have thought that the WNBA season would be a little bit more dramatic here towards the end than it would be during? But such is life in the WNBA. It's going to be a fun off season of no sleep, right?
Yeah,
Ugh.
exactly.
Well, cool. Well, I just want to first, before we get into the off season, because we'll dive into that, I wanted to kind of take a step back and look at what happened in the finals and just kind of the outcome in the finals. Obviously, Las Vegas took care of business in the finals, defeating Phoenix. What were your thoughts on what took place and just kind of what we saw in the finals with Las Vegas's performance specifically?
I mean, Las Vegas was on a mission. I look, obviously they've entered the dynasty realm. Two championships, that ain't it. 3 and 4 years, that's a dynasty. There's no question about that. And honestly, I more so than looking at the finals, because if uh, I, as many might know, maybe have a little bit of a unique perspective, a different perspective from some people, have some opinions that other people don't share. But like as you watch them through the season. I would say, in a sense of the season, the most impressive of their three championship runs. Just a I don't want to over express it, but like an abysmal first half of the season for the
Yeah.
Las Vegas Aces. They catch fire after that 53-point loss to the Lynx, and they just were hard to stop from that point forward. But the thing that I kind of maybe I haven't seen as much that keeps like being in my mind when I think about this Vegas run was in that sense of it being a Jackal Hyde season for them essentially reminding us that 2021 Chicago Sky season, right?
Yeah.
Where it was like you can truly go from a team that has the talent. Like that's why throughout the season, us as talking heads are so afraid to make a definitive statement of this team doesn't have it or this team does have it because we know once you reach a certain level, like you can flip a switch and it's going to go on and you can go for a run like the Aces did.
Hmm.
That said, I don't think by any stretch of imagination this was the best Aces team to win a championship. And I very much think that, while the Aces took care of business and did what they had to do, right? They won their um,
Series I.
series I. There very much could have been. I see the 4-0 sweep not as a definitive they are by far the best team this season, but more so a happenstance of them taking care of business of what's in front of them. They took care
Hmm.
of what they needed to do. I think we wouldn't have seen a 4-0 sweep if we were talking about, a healthy Lynx team with a fee. If we're talking about a Liberty team possibly getting to that point, or if we're talking about should be Golden State. No, but like probably Golden State. But even then, like I just think the matter of how these two storylines kind of came to a head in the brackets is why we saw a 4-0 lead versus looking at it and saying, this Aces team was just like so far beyond every because I think that's kind of when we look back, that's often a story, right? When we talk
Hmm.
about the Lynx of yesteryear, when we talk about the Storm, when we talk about that Mystics championship team, when we talk about the New York Lit, like we talk about teams that were just like so amazingly good and impressive. To me, this was, yes, Jackie Young deserves credit. Jewel Lloyd stepped up when it mattered. Dan Evans, big plays, second ring, really cool to see. Um, but Asia Wilson put the team on her back and just she had that aggression, that next gear of I'm not going to let my season end.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, not to get into the MVP discussion, but that's whatever. That's
Yeah.
a whole nother
Yeah.
thing. But no, just an impressive playoff run by Asia Wilson. Also, we can't talk about the WNBA playoffs this year without talking about, in my opinion, the travesty which is the officiating.
Hmm.
The travesty which is to what much smarter people have pointed out, which is it's bigger than the officiating. It's what the league has directed the officiating to do. Um, like I just think. there's players that are hard to officiate. We're talking BG, Asia, um, AT. I'm blanking on some JJ. Like there's players that the league has historically had trouble officiating, whether that means that they don't get calls. I would add fee to that list, maybe.
Yeah,
Or whether that means that they are getting an abundance of calls, or whether that means that there is not a consistency of how you're calling that player. And sometimes it's because that player is, you know, 3 feet taller than everybody else. And so when they move their arms, their elbow hits a place that a normal player doing that normal motion wouldn't hit, causing a penalty, causing a flagrant, whatever it be. This player plays a more aggressive style that's running downhill and is essentially a linebacker. And how do you like I understand the nuance to it, and I'm not
right.
trying to skip over the nuance, but the fact of the matter is there's players throughout this league that are officiated in ways that are inconsistent,
Mhm.
if I'm trying not to get fined. And I would like to see um, a way for the league in general. But again, and we'll talk about this. Maybe this is a good segue, but like we'll talk about this in a moment. But like I think this is a bigger than Kathy problem. I think this
Mhm.
is a like we can't just stop following the crumb trail at Kathy.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a league issue. Like and it's not, a lot of people point out that okay, a lot of people are bringing it up now, or I've heard some people saying like the Lynx are just bringing it up because they lost, that kind of stuff. It goes well beyond one series, one game, one season even. This has been an issue that's been, decades long almost. Like it's
Hmm.
been a long time issue, and it's just something the WNBA has kind of just not fixed. They've not focused on it and not taken it really as serious as they probably should. And to your point, yeah, it's not just a Kathy thing. I mean, yes, she's at the head of it and she's easy to blame, but there's much more to it, and it's just to a point now where I think one person or maybe a couple people were kind of the catalysts of getting that started. You can kind of we'll talk about this too, but it's similar with Fee and kind of how she kind of spoke up about Kathy and just the league in general. But it it's it takes a little bit of a spark to get that going, and that's why everybody's talking about it now, and that's unfortunate because what are we talking about right now rather than what we saw in the playoffs? We're talking about officiating. After every game, after every series, we were talking about officiating, and it's every single team that has spoken out about it. I mean, you look at every.
Even the funniest thing to me I have to just add was
Mhm.
Nate Tibbs when
Oh yeah,
in the Link series he was asked about the officiating. He's like, "We haven't complained about officiating at all season. We're just focused on playing." And then the finals come around and game one, officiating wasn't that great, blah blah blah.
yeah.
Not throwing shade at him as specifically, but just
Mhm.
we have seen literally and it was well documented that every single head coach and a lot of players that made comments about the officiating, except from the Phoenix Mercury, and it took the finals to get those comments going. So now we can say every team has commented about
Oh
it
yeah.
before, like throughout the season.
Yeah, and I mean, even just in the playoffs, like Golden State, they were talking about it throughout the series with Minnesota. Obviously, Minnesota when they're playing Phoenix, that was a big topic of conversation. Las Vegas, it seemed like the Aces have talked about it all season long. I mean, you go across the board, and everybody has issues with it, and it's not that they're necessarily calling the officiating bad, but they're calling out the lack of consistency with officiating. Because we've even seen it, with covering Lynx games, I've seen it where they, there's a game that's called completely different from one half to the second half, and it's in part because they're trying to make up for what happened in the first half. That should never be the case. That doesn't happen. That
Hmm.
shouldn't happen.
And
Um,
you see it from game to game. Like
right.
Cheryl Reeve is one of the best at this, making very direct, explicit comments about the officiating. And you'll see in the next game
Yeah.
where the focus of the officiating is. And obviously, that's something that's going to happen. If, we work together, if I'm like, hey, I make a comment about your last article didn't have enough stats in it, it's not a crazy thought to think that like the next article would have a little bit more stats or be a little bit more focused on stats. You're going to
Right.
be more, and so. I think there is this misconception of like that is a natural part of it, but what we're talking about, what you just mentioned, is a complete change of it, of like, and I don't know how to put this into a way. It's unprofessional. It's bad for the game. It ruins the legacy of these players. I mean,
Hmm.
for so long, something that has very much irritated me is aspects of the All-Star game voting. And like the seasons that we have the Olympics and the Olympic players automatically getting all-star vote and things like that, or what we have. And like those impact legacy because I care so deeply about these players' legacies. When they make the accomplishments that they make, they should be rewarded for it and they should be remembered for it. Because that's like besides honoring them in the moment, that is like the greatest thing that we can do as respect to their amazing talents and skills and what
Hmm.
they've done, in my perspective. Maybe I'm wrong. Um, and when we this has become more of my focus of frustration of recent years because we have players where it's like, whether in the first half they're letting Alyssa Thomas do XYZ and she's having a triple double, but then the second half they don't allow her to do that at all. And then, whatever stat that she had started at the half is now completely torn off. Or
Hmm.
similar for Asia, like when you do those things, and yes, there's adjustments and there's gameplay adjustments and the refs adjust and all that, but these are like little things that to me it's like the butterfly effect. It's a small drop in the pool, what it seems like, but it ripples out and it becomes to have a big impact, whether it's player safety, player injury, whether it's who's winning games, whether it's who's making personal achievements and personal records and league records. It just feels like this is something that needs to be addressed on every single level.
Yeah.
There's no, place they call when there's a disputed call
Hmm.
and go, hey, what is the proper call? Like in the NFL, when a bad call, every time a score happens, it goes to the booth in Poughkeepsie or whatever it is, and they review it and they go, that's a touchdown. Now they still get it wrong sometimes, looking at that TJ Hawkinson catching back in the end zone. Um, but at least they're going through that process. And also there is a level of standard. Like there's always going to be fans and players pissed off at the refs and claiming that the refs are biased and blah, blah, blah. And we don't even need to get into like, hey, we just see all these NBA players rigging games or what. I don't even know fully what it is. Oh, maybe the
Hmm.
refs. I don't know. Whatever. No, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that. What I am saying is like, we need to like there's human error, there's things that are going to happen, but we still need to hold people to the standard
Hmm.
of this is the best basketball league in the world. Are you up to snuff to be a referee in this league?
Right.
And are you getting the right guidance from the league on what should be done, what is acceptable, what's not acceptable? And like, it's hard for me to convince me that the answer to either of those is yes.
Yeah. I no, I agree. And I wrote this at Canis Hoopus too, kind of shortly after the season, or maybe it was towards the end of the playoffs, whatever it was. But you're taking the officials are impacting games and they're taking it away from what should be happening as the players deciding it on the court. And that's the unfortunate part because it is impacting the way players are playing and the way that the games are, the outcomes of the games. And that shouldn't be the case. I go back to the saying, offensive linemen in the NFL always talk about it, where when you don't know that an offensive lineman is there, that's a good thing. And it's the same thing. Let's say even, let's relate it to the corporate world. Like a good PR team, a good public relations team, you don't know is there because they're doing a good job. And that's a sign of them doing a good job. That's the same thing with officiating. When they're not the focus, that's a good thing. And that's when they're doing their job. When they are the focus, it's always a bad thing. And that's what we're dealing with right now. And it does, it could be, I'm not trying to rip on these officials because they're doing the job that they
I couldn't
think
do a
that
better job.
well, yeah, I mean either.
Like,
And it's they're doing the job they think they need to be doing and that they think they're doing their best job. And that goes back to the league. That goes back to the training. That goes back to the, what they're, informing the officials to do and what not to do, to your point. And without that, the officials are going to do what they think is necessary, and it's just a lack of inconsistency across the board. And I think that's the biggest thing that everybody's asking for, fans, players, coaches, teams, whatever, just consistency and just, knowing what you're gonna get. And I'm not saying that, they should change the way they call games or whatever, but just knowing what you're going to get and just having, that across the board consistency with officiating, because you could have two different crews that are calling the games completely different ways.
Hmm.
And that, like I said, that's unfortunate, and the players should be deciding these games on the court, and that's ultimately what this game is about and what the point of the game is to let the players do what they do. But yeah,
And
it's
it, no,
go
it,
ahead.
it no, it just feels like, when you look back at past seasons, there's certain, when we talk about the Chicago Sky title run, we remember their title run. We remember their championship. When we talk about, the Mystics run, we remember that because they did something like the narrative of that championship was their run. And it feels like the officiating and the CBA in general really has taken away maybe from us remembering this as a historic 16 and 8, what was it, 18 and 0 run before
Mhm.
they lost a game, and then they end up going like, 25 and 3 or something like that in the last 28 games of the season, concluding playoffs.
Right.
It takes away from that. And now, and that's what I'm saying is like, I worry now that 5 years down the road, 8 years down the road, we'll be looking back at this season and it will be like, what was that year when the Aces won their third? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, it will be like when we talk about uh the New York Liberty making that half court shot, Teresa Witherspoon making that half court shot, but they still lost the series. Like how that stole the narrative of that championship year. Like it's
Mhm.
almost more remembered of the year of that shot, even though they didn't win it. I kind of worry that that is what's happening. Like Asia Wilson does this historic season. I hope the 18 and 0 run, the 4 and 0 win over the Mercury, the third championship in 4 years is what is remembered about this season. But I fear the referees have done such a good job being the referees that
Mhm.
they not only will take that attention then, but in the future.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of speaking of controversy, because the end of the season was definitely one for the Minnesota Lynx. But what kind of overall, what were your thoughts on not only what Nafisa Collier had said on her exit interviews and kind of what's transpired since then, but even Cheryl Reeves' comments during and after Game Three against Phoenix. But what are your thoughts on both of them kind of really speaking out and kind of taking jabs at the league?
Yeah, I mean, props to them. Look,
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl Reeves is never one to pull punches. She's never one to not take jabs at the league,
Mm-hmm.
or take jabs where she sees fit. I think, like, let's be real. And this is me not coming from a place of being from Minnesota. This is not me being a huge fan on a personal level of Nafisa Collier. Let's examine her as a whole product, as a whole person. She is like maybe someone's gonna come on here and be like, no, she's a horrible person. I've never heard anybody say that. She is every interaction I've ever had with her. She is one of the most kind-hearted, sweetest people. Everyone who interacts with her reflects that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she's putting on an act. I don't think she has a PR team whispering in her ear, this is how you should respond when you see, like, I've been at the away games where she's hurt, but she still takes any moment during the warm up or during the player intros to like run over to a kid wearing her jersey, give them
Mm-hmm.
a hug and take a photo or like sign something for them or bring them, a little tchotchke that she had with her.
Mm-hmm.
She is that superstar. Um, and she's always had that off the court aspect of being the superstar. We have seen throughout her career her ascending to she this year was a top, I mean last year too, but this year was a top two player in the league. She was top two in MVP voting. She was a distant second according to the vote. Not here to argue about that. Fine, whatever. Um, she is a superstar. We see in this league, and a known thing that superstars, players who have elevated their play to a certain level consistently get a certain type of call. We can hate it, we can love it. I think if you're being kind about it, you're saying those players are so good they get a benefit of the doubt. We have an understanding that their level of play is so advanced that when there's a 50-50 call, our mind will naturally kind of assume that they were in the right because they are that good. They do those amazing things day in and day out, every moment. You can also say, on the other hand, that's not fair to the other players. You can also say that the other players aren't as good, so they're out of position, so they're fouling, whatever it is. The point is we have not seen the same respect for Nafisa that other players in this league get. Now,
Mhm.
I want to be very clear. This isn't strictly a Nafisa problem. Nafisa has brought it to light. We have seen this for years. I mean, if we go back, you and I have been covering and been around this league for long enough to remember that, like, 10 years ago, it was a consistent argument, a consistent shot at the league, at the marketing, at the media, that we only talked about what? Maya Moore, Diana Taurasi, Elena Deladon,
Yep.
and, Candace Parker,
Yep.
or Sue Bird. Like, it was four players, and those, and maybe you would get another player, but it was always the same type of player, the same boxed in type of player that never did anything wrong, never had any, for lack of a better term, outlandish personality. We're not at that point anymore. So I think some people have forgotten a little bit where we came from as a league. And I have not seen, and the crazy thing is, Fee almost like embodies that Maya Moore, Elena Deladon aspect
Hmm.
of being that, picture perfect thing off the court, and then on the court is still doesn't, isn't going around getting technicals left and right,
Right.
isn't fouling out of games, isn't swearing at the refs. Like,
Hmm.
she holds herself with such composure. And so I think it's like, I don't know, it's hard to wrap your head around all the juxtapositions and contradictions and all of that. But, I think there is a very fair and legitimate argument to be made from the Minnesota team, from Fee's camp, from Reeves' camp, to point out that the officiating has not only been not consistent, but also, like, we're talking about a player who, like, what do you want her to do to be on that level, I guess,
Hmm.
to be considered a top player, to be getting those top calls? I'm not even saying this in a sense of like, it's problematic that X, Y, and Z player get calls. I'm not, what I'm saying is, like, I understand this is a thing. It has been a thing for the history of professional sports.
Hmm.
Jerry Rice got better calls. Chris Carter got better calls. Randy Moss, Brett Favre, Dante. Like, I'm just listing Viking players. Wow. They never got good calls, so I don't know what you're talking about. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Like, when they're like, this happens in pro sports, Maya Moore would get calls. Candace Parker would get leniency calls. And so I think Fee has proven herself to that point. So either abolish the system or grant her access. I don't know.
Hmm.
Maybe, also, is that just like an outlandish rant to go on? I don't know.
No, I agree with you. I mean, it's something that, it this kind of stems back to, you could even say Sylvia Fowles. This is something that Minnesota dealt with during that, arguably MVP stretch, from her. Cheryl Reeve talked about, a couple years even, that she's the most underappreciated, kind of under-respected player, in the WNBA when it comes specifically to calls and just kind of how she's viewed. And it's kind of the same with Fee. And yeah, I think that, a lot of people maybe view her like that because she isn't outspoken. She isn't really, emotional on the court. She doesn't do what she did, during her exit interview really ever. But it's getting to a point where she needs to speak up, and that's kind of what she had said, that, it's time. It's time that I say something. And there's a couple different things with Fee too, and why it's important that she speaks up about this. One, obviously her involvement in the players, union or players association. That's a first and foremost. Yes, it's kind of you could argue that it's a power move, or it's a kind of a negotiating tactic, whatever it may be. The other thing is, what does she do in the offseason? She co-founded Unrivaled, and she knows what it takes to run a league and run a league well. And and that's part of it where that I view her comments a little different than anybody else. Maybe, Brianna Stewart could be added in with Fee, but just for the both their involvement in Unrivaled. But they both know what it takes to run a league and run a league successfully, and all the things that go behind it. Fee talked about relationships. She talked about just kind of things off of the court that need to be corrected. And that is, that's where I look at that like, okay, she has some valid points here because, she knows, she understands what this takes and what leadership looks like. And that's not what the WNBA has right now. And that's something that they need to fix. But it's we'll see what happens when it comes to the actual CBA and how that might impact it and how that impacts negotiations and all of that. But it is something that is we'll look back on this and be like, wow, that was a big moment in this season and maybe even WNBA history because it was a very profound statement and it could change specifically how the CBA talk goes. And that will obviously impact the next decade of the season or of the league. But
And by
yeah.
the way, let me just my I it starts and ends with the NBA. Like, let
Hmm.
me be abundantly clear. We have a commissioner for the first time in league history, not because she necessarily has more power and more control over the league than previous years. Maybe she does, but at the end of the day, she's run by her bosses, which are the owners in the NBA. And
Hmm.
so, you can say that Fee has a conflict of interest. Well, then half the league does also,
Hmm.
because most of them, a lot of the league has invested interest in Unrivaled. A lot of the league has invested interest in the W paying them more to an exorbitant amount. But at the end of the day, the NBA is kind of calling a shot. So when you see these comments coming from Adam Silver, don't trust them, A, but B, understand that in my opinion, they carry a lot more weight than anything Kathy's saying, because
Hmm.
anything Kathy wants to say is run up the totem pole to Adam Silver for
Yep.
power,
Yes.
approval, and
Yeah.
then she gets to say it. So like, hey Kathy, love Kathy, cool. Stop giving the NBA a free pass.
Yeah.
And let me just say this, because this is something that has irked me for years. A lot of people don't want to accept blaming the NBA for the W's shortcomings because they're also NBA fans. And it would be acknowledging the inherent evil, sorry, that the NBA has done to the WNBA, and acknowledging some, not accomplice to it, but like some acceptance of it or unknowingness or ignorance to it. But like, to me, if we it like a huge reason why so many people are unable to accept that is because of the affection they have for the NBA, because they have followed it and loved it for years. When it's
Hmm.
like, we can appreciate him for two separate things, but like, as the owner of the WNBA, this is a horrible organization that is doing horrible things and not helping them grow. Sorry, that's my I hate the NBA rant. Sorry.
No, I don't disagree with you. I mean, there's a lot that could be done both NBA and WNBA wise to improve the product and improve the league, kind of structurally too. Um, I kind of want to jump into the CBA talk too because this podcast will come out on a Tuesday before the deadline, which is October 31st. But it's looking like we're set up for an extension. And I could be completely wrong. And by the time this podcast comes out, there'll probably be something where something agreement is in place or whatever. I hope that is the case. But
As it happens.
yeah, and I don't know. I just think that we're gonna end up extending it. I think both sides are just a little too far apart. What do you kind of have a similar sense for where things are at with that?
Yeah, I think it's really hard because we're basing it completely off of like public statements, and you talk to someone privately and they say the sky is falling. You talk to someone else privately and they're like, it's not that far.
Hmm.
I've not heard anybody suggest that there won't be an extension. I would be shocked, just completely shocked, if there's not an extension, like if
Yeah.
they sign it flat out. And I don't use shocked often. Um, but yeah, I think there is a wide gap between where the two parties are. I think the verbiage that Adam Silver used is head scratching, but also very clear, which is the NBA by way of the W, or WNBA by way of the NBA, has essentially, from all intents and purposes, wants to continue doing the same thing they have been doing for all the past CBAs.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe they adjust the revenue incentive just a little bit because that got a lot of attention because the past CBA, there was just like an unattainable revenue benchmark that if it was passed, then the revenue would exponentially grow. The split for the players. The NBA is clearly trying to not make this about a revenue split. I'm not a math genius. I, if you're telling me that, hey, we just want to give you more money, not a larger revenue split, to me, my question is, well, one of those numbers is going to be a much larger number.
Right.
Are you telling me you want to give me more money than the revenue split, or are you telling me the revenue split's more money than you want to give me? Because it's not the same, and if it is the same, then why does it matter? So obviously, to me, it's pretty clear that again, this is a company, a large billion-dollar corporation, multi-billion-dollar corporation that owns a much smaller corporation that happens to be in a similar field, and they want to like them paying the players more means that's less money in the company's pocket.
Hmm.
It's very basic. Whatever company any of us have ever worked for, the company wants to make more money most of the time, and they want to pay you less money because that means they make more money. You ask for a raise. Oh, we can't give you 10%. We can only do 2. They can probably do 10%, but they want to make more money. Like this is
Hmm.
normal business.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be extended. Hopefully we don't have a lockout, but yeah.
Yeah, it will be not only interesting over these next couple of weeks to see what happens, but just the offseason in totality with all the free agents. This specifically with the Lynx, it could be completely different. Team, I don't think it'll be that different this offseason, but it could be definitely a different team. Just with the turnover and the insertion of new teams and all of that. But um, it's going to be a one heck of an off season, and
Be
it's
crazy.
the 2025 season into the 2026 season. You could even bunch those two seasons together, even though we haven't played the 2026 season. But this is to this point in the league, this is the most important stretch that the league has ever seen. And probably it is a historical moment in time we're watching it unfold because it's changing the trajectory of the WNBA. And for the better. I mean, it's, the players are getting more money. Hopefully that means that resources stay here a little bit longer or year round. And that'll, in the end, it'll improve the product. And not saying the product's bad now, but it'll just improve it even more. Hopefully it'll improve the officiating. But yeah, it is a very historical time, not only with what we've seen over the 2025 season, but since obviously the CBA negotiations and just kind of how that's going to shape not only the 2026 season, but beyond. And it's like we talked about at the beginning, it will be a busy off season. It'll be one with no sleep. It'll be one with plenty of news, and I don't think any of us are going to be able to churn out as much news as going to be coming out once players
Oh
are
my
kind of the
God.
free
And then
agency
15
period.
teams.
Yeah.
15 teams.
Yep.
Like, also, I will say, like, something that I hope in this new CBA is kind of balanced and is not forgotten. The WNBA season, even at its point right now, is less than 50 games in a calendar year. There's a lot of players that benefit from overseas play and grow the game, and that in turn ends up growing the W's game
Yeah.
and elevating the level of that game.
Hmm.
There needs to be that ability to kind of the W wants their players stateside and to be healthy. The players want to be paid enough that they don't have to go overseas, but there's going to be some players for growth of skill and because even in the W they're not making enough money.
Hmm.
They want to go overseas and they should be given that opportunity, and that needs to be an aspect that continues to be part of the world of women's basketball, in my opinion,
Hmm.
at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, we'll be keeping our eyes peeled on everything this off season, and you'll be able to find everything at winsidr.com, of course. And like I said, there'll be plenty of content and plenty of news to to catch up on. So
No
check
shortage.
out there early, often, and come back and find out everything and stay up to date with everything uh, latest on the WNBA and in the off season. But Aryeh, I appreciate you joining. It's always a blast chatting with you, and we'll have to definitely do it again soon. Maybe we'll do like a mid off season catch up and see what madness has taken place since that point.
Always, always down to chat. Thanks for having me, and go Lynx.
Thank you once again to Aryeh for joining the podcast. As I mentioned, he's a lot of fun to chat with. Him and I could talk just about all day. If it wasn't for my condensed schedule, I think we probably would have talked all day. So you're welcome for that not taking place, and you don't have to listen to me any longer than you probably planned to. But once again, in all seriousness, thank you to Aryeh for jumping on the podcast. It's always a blast having him on and chatting hoops with Aryeh. I also want to give a shout out and a thank you to all of our partners here at Hitting the Hardwood. We could not do it without each and every single one of those partners, but we couldn't do it without you, the listeners, as well. And we appreciate all of your support, whether it's listening, whether it's supporting through our Patreon page at patreon.com/hitting the hardwood, or just following us on social media, reaching out, doing something like I said, as maybe as little as listening to this podcast makes a big difference. So thank you, but also thank you to our partners, our two major, I don't want to say major, but our two top partners right now, Pence Homes, Nate Pence and the Pence Homes teams. If you are not reaching out to Nate and the Pence Homes teams, excuse me, whether you're buying or selling, you need to do so. PenceHomes.com. You can find out all of that information. You can set up a schedule set up a meeting, excuse me, with Nate. You should be going through them because they're phenomenal people. They do great work. And they are huge supporters of not only what we're doing here with all of our podcasts, but the Minnesota Lynx and Minnesota basketball, women's sports, all of the above. So please go check out Nate Pence and the Pence Home team. That's a tongue twister, Nate. I'm sorry about that. But I also want to give a shout out to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling for being a great sponsor. Isaac and the team over there have been great with supporting us, and they're all on board on us doing this and providing this content to all of you. So thank you to Isaac. Thank you to the Firehawk Construction and Remodeling team. Go visit our partners page on our website to find out how you can get a hold of them, how you can go to their website or you can find their website. And you should be, if you are thinking about whether it's now or maybe it's next spring, if you live in Minnesota, once the snow melts after the winter, if you're thinking about remodeling, you should be calling Isaac and his team because they do phenomenal work. And I know Terry and Andrew, who are gracious enough to join me on this Hitting the Hardwood journey, they can attest to that as well. So thank you to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling. I also want to give a shout out to our other three partners that we do have: Fantasy Sports EVO, BettorEdge, and Homage. As I mentioned a little bit earlier when I was talking about Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, you can go to our partners page and you can find all those businesses, all those partners, and you can find out how you can get involved, how you can learn more about them, their websites, and exactly what they do. So please check that out. Please support all of them. They support us, and we would love for you to support them and the great work that they do. With that said, I want to thank you all for tuning into another episode. We'll be having more episodes here coming up throughout the off season as usual. I dropped a little teaser on social media here it'll be probably almost 2 weeks a week and a half by the time you listen to this podcast. But we're in the works of launching a new website here at Hitting the Hardwood. So more to come on that in the coming weeks, coming months. And I'm really excited to give that to you all and present that to you all. I love working on the back end of things in the website. So this is Nerd Mitchell coming out. But I'm really excited to share all of that with you guys here very soon. But keep an eye out on that for, what you can sign up for our newsletter and get updates for that. You can follow us on social media. However you get your Hitting the Hardwood news, we will have that on there when that is up and live. So keep an eye out at hittingthehardwood.com, and that'll be coming here very shortly. So once again, thank you for tuning in. We'll definitely keep you informed on what happens with the CBA, what happens with the latest this off season, and I will talk to you next time.